The DUOTTS C29L arrives in a large box, and as you would expect from a full-size 29-inch electric bike, there is quite a lot of bike inside. But the good news is that most of the important work has already been done at the factory. Once all the protective packaging is removed, the main frame, drivetrain, rear wheel, cables, and most of the components are already installed. So this is not a bike that you have to build from individual parts. Next comes the handlebar. Again, the cables and controls are already connected, so there is no complicated wiring to deal with. You simply position the handlebar, align it correctly, and tighten everything into place. The first major step is installing the front wheel. The quick release system makes this relatively simple, and once the wheel is properly positioned in the fork, it only takes a moment to secure it. After that, the pedals can be installed. Just remember that the left and right pedals use different thread directions, which is normal on bicycles. The included tools are enough for the basic assembly, so you do not need a workshop full of equipment to get the DUOTTS C29L ready. Then there are a few smaller details. The saddle height can be adjusted to match the rider, the controls can be positioned comfortably, and it is always a good idea to check the pressure in both tires before the first ride. I also recommend checking the brakes, gears, wheel alignment, and all important bolts after assembly. That is something I do with any new bicycle, regardless of the brand. Overall, the assembly process is straightforward. Even if you have never assembled an electric bike before, there is nothing particularly intimidating here. And if you are interested in the DUOTTS C29L or any other bike from the DUOTTS store, you can also use my personal discount code. It will give you 90 euros off your purchase. You can find the discount code and the link to the DUOTTS store in the video description below. And once everything is in place, the C29L starts to look much more substantial than it did inside the box. With the 29-inch wheels, traditional bicycle frame, front suspension, rear rack, and relatively clean design, this is immediately recognizable as a practical full-size e-bike rather than something trying to look like a small electric motorcycle. And now that everything is assembled, we can take a much closer look. The first thing I like about the DUOTTS C29L is that it still looks and feels like a proper bicycle. There is no oversized motorcycle-style seat, no extremely wide fat tires, and no unnecessarily complicated frame design. Instead, you get a conventional aluminium alloy frame with large 29-inch wheels and a geometry that should feel familiar to anyone who has spent time on a mountain bike or trekking bike. And I think that is an important part of the appeal. The C29L is clearly an electric bike, but the electrical components do not completely dominate the design. The battery sits on the down tube, the motor is integrated into the rear wheel, and from many angles, the bike still has a surprisingly traditional appearance. The frame itself feels solid. The welds are clean, the cable routing is reasonably tidy, and nothing on my bike immediately gave me the impression that corners had been cut where they really matter. There are also several practical details already included. You have full-length mudguards, a rear cargo rack, a front light, a rear light, and sturdy aluminium pedals. So the bike arrives much closer to a complete everyday transport solution than a bare mountain bike that still needs several accessories before it becomes practical. The 29-inch wheel size gives the C29L a fairly large presence. This is worth keeping in mind if you are coming from a compact folding bike or something with 20-inch wheels. It feels like a full-size bike because it is one. DUOTTS recommends it for riders from around 170 to 200 centimeters tall, and the saddle has a generous adjustment range. Once you get the seat height right, the riding position feels natural and relatively relaxed. You are not sitting extremely upright, but you are also not leaning forward like you would on an aggressive racing bike. For commuting, longer recreational rides, and everyday use, I think the balance works well. Up front, the cockpit is quite busy, but everything has a purpose. The central display is easy to see while riding and shows the information you actually need without forcing you to look through complicated menus. You can quickly check your speed, battery information, assist setting, and other riding data. The display also supports Bluetooth connectivity with the DUOTTS app, giving you another way to access information and keep track of the bike. I like having physical controls on the handlebar as well. When you are riding, especially on a rougher surface, physical buttons are much easier to use than trying to interact with a phone screen. Of course, the main reason to choose an electric bike is the assistance, and this is where the C29L changes from an ordinary large bicycle into something much easier and more enjoyable to ride over longer distances. There are several levels of pedal assistance. At the lower settings, the support is relatively gentle. You still feel that you are riding a bicycle and doing some of the work yourself, but hills and longer distances become easier. Move through the higher assist levels and the character changes. The bike becomes much more energetic, and you can maintain your pace with considerably less effort. The system uses a speed sensor, so the assistance is not trying to reproduce every small change in the pressure you apply to the pedals. Instead, it detects your pedaling and then delivers support according to the selected level. Once you understand that behavior, it becomes predictable very quickly. For relaxed commuting and longer rides, I found it easy to settle into a comfortable rhythm. You choose a mechanical gear, select the amount of electric assistance you want, and simply keep moving. And because there are several assistance levels available, you can decide whether you want to save battery or make the ride as effortless as possible. One feature that separates the C29L from many simpler electric bikes is the traditional Shimano 21-speed drivetrain. You have 3 chain rings at the front and 7 gears at the rear. That gives you a much wider mechanical gear range than the basic 7-speed systems found on many affordable e-bikes. And while you probably will not use every possible combination every day, having this range is useful. On a flat road, you can select a higher gear and maintain a comfortable cadence. When the road starts climbing, you can move down through the gears and reduce the amount of effort required. And if you decide to ride with little or no electrical assistance, the extra gear range becomes even more useful. The rear derailleur is also protected by a metal guard. It is a small component, but a useful one. The derailleur sits in a vulnerable position, especially when transporting or storing the bicycle, and the guard can help protect it from accidental impacts. Gear changes on my bike feel familiar and straightforward. There is nothing exotic about the system, and that is actually a positive point. Shimano bicycle components are widely used, easy to understand, and much easier to service than a proprietary drivetrain. The C29L also receives an important upgrade compared with the original C29. This model comes with hydraulic brakes at both the front and the rear. And on an electric bike, good brakes are something I consider far more important than having a long list of impressive specifications. The brake levers require relatively little effort, and the braking response feels controlled. You can slow down gently when approaching a corner, but there is also enough braking force available when you need to stop quickly. Hydraulic brakes generally give a more progressive feeling at the lever compared with basic mechanical cable-operated systems. That makes it easier to control exactly how much braking force you want. During normal riding, this makes the bike feel more confidence-inspiring, and because the C29L is a large electric bicycle with 29-inch wheels, I think this upgrade makes a lot of sense. At the front, we have a suspension fork with around 100 millimeters of travel. This is not trying to turn the C29L into a dedicated downhill mountain bike. Instead, the suspension is there to make normal riding more comfortable. And for that job, it works well. Small potholes, broken pavement, gravel roads, and uneven paths are much less noticeable than they would be with a rigid fork. The fork also has a lockout. So when you are riding on smooth pavement and do not need suspension movement, you can make the front end more rigid. Large wheels roll over imperfections easily, maintain momentum well, and make the bike feel stable once you are moving. At the same time, these are not massive fat bike tires. That means you avoid much of the additional rolling resistance and heavy steering feel that can come with extremely wide tires. For roads, bicycle paths, gravel, and light trails, this combination makes a lot of sense. Power for the electrical system comes from a removable 48-volt, 15-amp-hour battery. The battery is mounted on the down tube and can be locked securely to the frame. You can charge it directly on the bike, but if your bike is stored in a garage, basement, or another place without convenient access to power, you can simply remove the battery and charge it somewhere else. DUOTTS quotes an assisted riding range of up to around 90 kilometers under its stated test conditions. As always with electric bikes, I would treat any maximum range figure as exactly that, a maximum under particular conditions. Real-world range changes significantly depending on rider weight, temperature, hills, tire pressure, wind, the selected assistance level, and how much effort you contribute yourself. If you spend most of your ride using high assistance, expect less range. If you use lower assistance and pedal more, you can go considerably farther. For me, what matters more is that a 15 amp hour battery gives this bike enough capacity to make it genuinely useful for longer rides and regular commuting. It does not feel like a bike where you constantly need to think about finding the next charger. But specifications only tell part of the story. What really matters is how all of these components work together once you start riding. And this is probably where the C29L made the best impression on me. The bike feels stable. The large wheels definitely contribute to that, but so does the overall geometry. Once you are moving, it tracks confidently and does not require constant small corrections from the handlebar. On a smooth bicycle path, you can simply select a comfortable gear, choose your assist level, and maintain speed with very little drama. On rougher surfaces, the front suspension and larger wheels help keep the ride controlled, and when the terrain changes, the wide Shimano gear range gives you plenty of flexibility. One thing I also appreciate is that the bike does not force you to ride quickly to enjoy it. You can use a low assistance setting and ride it almost like a normal bicycle. Or you can increase the assistance when you are tired, riding into the wind, climbing a hill, or simply want to arrive somewhere without working too hard. That flexibility is one of the best things about a good electric bicycle. You are still riding, you are still pedaling, you are still controlling the gears and choosing how much effort you want to put in. The electric system simply gives you another layer of control, and after spending some time with the C29L, the whole system starts to feel very natural. Comfort is also surprisingly good. There is no rear suspension, so you will still feel larger impacts through the frame and saddle. But for the type of riding this bike is designed for, I do not think full suspension is necessary. The front fork takes care of the majority of smaller bumps coming through the front wheel, while the large tires add another layer of cushioning. The saddle is also shaped more for everyday comfort than aggressive performance riding. Of course, saddle preference is very personal, but I was able to find a comfortable position without much adjustment. For longer rides, the combination of the riding position, large wheels, suspension fork, and electrical assistance reduces fatigue considerably. And I think this is exactly where a bike like the C29L makes sense. You can use it for a short ride around town, but it also encourages you to go farther because distance simply requires less effort. A 40-kilometer ride no longer feels like something you necessarily have to plan around. You can just get on the bike and go. DUOTTS has also included several things that make the C29L much more practical straight out of the box. The front light is integrated into the bike's electrical system, so you do not have to remember to charge a separate bicycle light every few days. There is also a rear light for better visibility from behind. The full-length mudguards are another useful addition, particularly if you plan to use the bike for commuting. They will not keep every drop of water away from you, but they make a huge difference on wet roads. And at the rear, there is a proper steel cargo rack. DUOTTS rates this rack for loads of up to 25 kilograms. That gives you plenty of options. You can add pannier bags, carry groceries, mount a cargo bag, or use the bike for daily errands without needing to wear a backpack. After looking closely at the C29L, there are also quite a few small details that I appreciate. The pedals are aluminium rather than basic plastic. The kickstand feels appropriate for the size of the bike. The battery can be removed and locked. The rear derailleur has additional protection. The cables are routed neatly enough that they do not distract from the overall appearance. And most of the components are conventional bicycle parts rather than strange proprietary solutions. That last point is worth mentioning. Eventually, every bicycle needs maintenance. Brake components wear out. Chains stretch, tires need replacing, gears sometimes need adjustment. Having familiar bicycle components can make long-term ownership considerably easier. The C29L is also rated for a maximum load of up to 150 kilograms, which gives it a useful amount of capacity for the rider plus luggage. Despite its size, the overall bike weight remains around the mid-20 kilogram range. So, after assembling the DUOTTS C29L, looking closely at its components, and spending time riding it, what do I think? I think the strongest part of this bike is the balance. There is no single feature that completely defines the C29L. Instead, DUOTTS has combined a lot of sensible choices into one package. You get large 29-inch wheels, useful front suspension, hydraulic brakes, a wide Shimano gear range, a removable battery, multiple levels of pedal assistance, integrated lighting, mudguards, and a proper rear rack. And all of that comes in a bike that still looks and rides much more like a traditional bicycle than many modern e-bikes. That is exactly why I think it can appeal to a wide range of riders. It can work as a daily commuter. It can handle longer recreational rides. It feels comfortable on bicycle paths and normal roads. And when the pavement ends, the large wheels and front suspension mean you do not immediately have to turn around. Most importantly, it is easy to enjoy. You do not need to understand every setting or constantly think about the electrical system. Once everything is adjusted, you simply get on the bike, choose the amount of assistance you want, select a comfortable gear, and ride. And for me, that is exactly what a good electric bike should do. It should make cycling easier without taking away the feeling that you are actually riding a bicycle. The DUOTTS C29L does that very well. It is practical, comfortable, capable, and surprisingly versatile. And if you are looking for a full-size electric bike that can handle everyday commuting as easily as a relaxed weekend ride, the C29L is definitely a model worth taking a closer look at. As always, I will leave more information about the DUOTTS C29L in the description below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this review, please give the video a like and subscribe to ScanVerdict for more detailed product reviews. And I will see you in the next one.